Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm going to walk you through the transformation journey that we had at Square in the customer success space. All right, I will spend just a few seconds to introduce myself. Afterwards, I will walk us through some focus areas in our AI transformation journey. I will briefly touch base on a build versus buy framework and some good insight that I had, that I built a long-lasting and forward-looking strategy for Square. I will go through some use cases with learning and achievements that we have done, and I will conclude with some challenges in our journey, and I will make sure to have space for a couple questions at the end. All right, just briefly about me. I am Giorgia. I am the global head of strategy for customer success at Square. In my background, I have an extensive experience in management consulting, the startup strategy, operations, and launching new products and helping companies function at scale. Now, let's go into what is that we're doing and what is our objective as a whole. So we are in the customer success organization, and we're helping our sellers have their issues and questions resolved. Square is helping sellers run their business. So our main objective is to give time back to our sellers so that they can focus on running their business. And we're doing that by leveraging some disruptive innovation and technologies that augments what our advocates can do in the day-to-day to support our sellers. We started with a very strong customer research on what our customers and sellers want. And in the customer success space, what we have learned is that our customers want to have their issues resolved quickly. Particularly when the issues are urgent, they tend to contact us in the live channels of support, bypassing any self-service attempt, and particularly contacting us through the phone channel. On the contrary, if the issues and questions are not that urgent, they tend to contact us through their preferred channel of support based on their team preferences and the past experience that they had. But the general rule is that our sellers don't want to spend time searching for support and having their answers responded to. With that in mind, we have developed a very strong seller-centric approach. I've seen one of the questions in the app that was, what is the key for a strong and forward-looking AI strategy in the customer success organization? This is what I would recommend everybody starting with a deep understanding of the workflows and the steps in the advocate and the customer journeys, and understanding what are the jobs to be done, what are the requirements, and what are the major opportunities that we can fulfill with AI or other solutions. That's where we started. Now, today I'm not going to be focused on the self-service pre-contact experience, but I will be focusing on when a human is in the loop. So the seller and the customer is contacting an advocate. I'm going to simplify the journey at its maximum. When a customer is interacting with an advocate, the first action that the advocate does is searching for the information to have the right basis to have the seller questions responded to. And it does that by searching in all different sources of truth, in all different systems, in all different platforms. That's usually about 25% of the advocate time spent on the phone and in the live interaction with the seller. The second step is the advocate is actually addressing the seller issue and is educating the seller on how to use the product and how to avoid similar issues in the future. And that's about 45% of their time. After the live interaction, the advocate is not quite done yet. So they go through some more administrative steps when they do a summary of the case. They add some notes to the case, and overall they say what the case was about, what product, what issue, what maybe improvement to our products we could do. Our AI strategy is based on three main steps of the journey and focus on search augmentation. How can we help our advocates have their answers and information sooner? How can we help our advocates have some pre-formed responses that they can quickly scan, tweak, and use to respond to our sellers? And finally, how can we automate the end-to-end post-case work? Before I go into double-clicking in those 3 different use cases, I wanted to walk you all through a build versus buy framework. Deciding to build something in-house or buy is probably one of the biggest dilemmas of the large-scale companies. And you will see that the landscape is fast-moving, very quickly evolving. There are many providers, new or well-established. They are proposing a similar variety of products and solutions. But when you double-click on what those actually are, you will see that the product maturity and the contractual negotiations and agreements are very different. And you will also see that the roadmap of a provider today is going to be very different from a quarter from now, how quickly the landscape is moving. So this is the framework that I personally used at Square and had landed out to a very sustainable composition of build and buy solutions in our landscape. So when to buy? Think, are the use cases that I'm trying to solve very well established use cases in the industry? Are other companies facing basically the same problems? And are the providers trying to solve those problems or effectively solving those problems? By buying, are we going to reduce the time to market, the maintenance cost, the building costs, and overall optimizing the ROI, so the return on investment of our initiative? And finally, are we going to be quicker by leveraging providers that are fully dedicated in building and scaling those AI solutions? When I think about build in-house, I'm thinking about solutions that are not readily available in the market. So solutions that require a high level of integration, customization, or they have very strict and sensitive safety and data privacy concerns. And also, some use cases that we can scale across the company. So for example, we start with the customer success organization, but we can expand those to the sales organization and to the account management organization with minimal rebuild and maintenance costs. And finally, you will find, as you search for different providers to buy out-of-the-box solutions, that contractual costs can be prohibitive at this point in time. So it could make sense to build in-house. Now, let's go into the first use case, the search augmentation. We built an in-house solution that is called Survine at Square. Before, our advocates had to consult different systems, different sources of truth, and search with some keywords that were landing in a suboptimal result and search. So by having this product, we're basically allowing our advocates to type in a very user-friendly way their question and have their question responded to with a preformed answer and all the different linked sources of truth that they can click on, they can consult. In addition to that, they can also have a very healthy feedback loop with our content and our knowledge as a whole, so that they can flag, this is a good resource that we can use, this is not up to date, this needs to be revamped as a whole. And overall, this reduces the manual time that our advocates spend in searching for the right information to have the customer's question responded to. This resulted in about 20% of reduction time in their search step. We also further expanded this product to do some improvements on the persona that this product is serving. So for example, account managers in addition to customer success, the language component because we're serving sellers across the globe, as well as this content feedback loop that I mentioned. With that, I'm going to play a quick demo for us that will showcase some of these product features.
When asked about whether a product is good for a specific business, the advocate identity will provide technical details about our products, but the account manager identity will prompt AMs with requirements gathering questions that help drive the conversation. For example, we'll ask the question, is Square for restaurants suitable for a bagel shop? Of both identities, so that we can see the differences in the responses. On the other hand, if the AM asks about a specific product feature, like how can I add a custom tips option, we see that the two identities will behave similarly, since this is the kind of question we'd want both advocate and account manager identities to provide a straightforward answer. Another new feature is the ability to choose your preferred user experience language. Currently, the supported options are English and Spanish. This setting will change the text on the buttons, labels, and status messages to be in the selected language. However, This setting will not affect the language used when responding to questions. This setting is applied immediately, so there is no need to restart or refresh your browser or your computer. Additionally, we are working on adding more languages to further expand accessibility. We've also added the ability to set the generated response language. This setting allows you to choose the language used when generating responses to your questions. Currently, the supported languages are English and Spanish. This setting is applied to individual questions at the time those questions are asked. Each question in your question history is also tagged with the identity and language that was selected at the time the question was asked. We want to empower advocates and account managers to be as much a part of the Servine development journey as possible by helping us flag instances where Servine is hallucinating. To this end, we've added a flagging feature to each response that allows Squares to let us know when an answer is incorrect and would have adverse consequences if actioned upon. Inviting advocates to collaborate on flagging responses as part of the Servine usage workflow will also reduce the reliance on QA to identify incorrect answers.
All right, and with that, let's go into the next use cases, which is suggested in auto-replies. This is what I was alluding at the beginning to say that we want to provide our advocates with the answers ready for them to review and send if it's in the messaging on email channel or leveraging the phone support channel. We are testing different providers and out-of-the-box solutions that have this capability. This allows our advocates to have real-time solutions and answers provided to them. The ability, again, to look at what content is generating those responses and provide a healthy feedback loop with the content. This is going to increase efficiency dramatically, particularly in the async support channels, and for them I'm referring to the chats, the messaging channels, and the email channels. We're expecting more than a 10% reduction in average handle time. Now, you may ask yourself, how can I select a vendor? There are so many vendors that can provide solutions for our business needs. And those are some of the criteria that I've used. First of all is understanding, can that provider fulfill our business needs? So are their solutions aligned with the problem that we're trying to resolve? The second point that I ask myself is the integration with our current tooling system easy to do and sustainable? Do we have the ability to test those solutions? So I highly recommend to do as many A/B tests and analysis as possible. And are we able to negotiate contracts, particularly trying to leverage a one-year contract agreement, knowing the evolution and the fast-moving environment? And more from a financial standpoint, my objective is to optimize return on investment as a whole with a target of above 100% and overall maximize the net savings as a whole. Now, going into the post-case automation, we're basically trying to automate everything that happens after a live interaction, from taking the summary on a case, labeling what the case was about, adding notes to the case, and our next step will be any other manual action that our advocates do on a case. Right now, this has resulted in 80% decrease in after-call and after-case work for our advocates. This will also allow us to have a better understanding of the seller and the customer history with our support journey. And in case of transfers and escalations, our customers don't have to repeat themselves. All the information is there, well-structured, and easy to be understood by the next advocates, escalation team member that is able to resolve and help in that case. With that, I'm going to play a little demo to show you what this exactly means in our customer success world.
Today, once a phone call with a seller completes, our advocates go into a status known as after case work. We uncovered opportunities that we could automate on advocates' behalf to allow them to get back to supporting seller issues faster. In this example of current state, you can see the advocate go into the Salesforce case after a call completes to begin their after case work tasks. The first action they take is searching through an extensive list of thousands of macros to choose and apply the most relevant one to the case. As you can see, this process is time-consuming and can allow for irrelevant macros to be applied to the case. This can lead to the loss of valuable insight into what actually happened on the call. Once a macro is applied, the advocate will then go in and add their notes from what happened on the call. You can see the advocate first applies the template that is required for phone advocates, then begins to type out the content for each field. Not only does this take time after the call, but advocates have to ensure they're taking notes throughout the call, which could distract them from listening and providing the best support they can to our sellers. These fields are related to a QA grading rubric that ensure advocates adhere to providing the correct information so that future stakeholders can look back at a seller account's case history. Once the case notes have been applied, advocates will save the fields, which in most cases will auto-resolve the case. Through the use of generative AI, we have automated the creation of case summaries and notes. As you can see on this case, we now have a summary of the seller interaction available. Additionally, we have all of the required advocate note fields, as well as some additional fields to provide stakeholders with a better glance at what happened with the seller. To remove the requirement of searching and applying a macro during after case work, we have created a new case insight taxonomy and are leveraging Gen AI to automatically apply labels to CS cases. We can now understand what product or service the case involved, the inquiry type, the inquiry topic or theme, and the inquiry details.
Perfect. So before we move forward, I just wanted to stress that what we're doing doesn't only have the objective to increase the efficiency of our advocate workflows and therefore give time back to our sellers. We strive to provide a higher level of support to our sellers. And we're seeing that these launches and solutions are actually increasing the CSAT, so the customer satisfaction, and increasing our SLA performance that are basically, for the ones of you that may not be as familiar with a customer success organization, the time to respond to a seller inquiry. Now let's spend a little bit of time on the challenges. There are many. So the first one that I want to mention is the content and the input. Our AI-powered solutions will be as good as the input we provide them. That meant for Square that we actually started with some foundational work to revamp our knowledge strategy and content architecture as a whole for both our seller and customer-facing material and our advocate-facing material. That means having information that is up-to-date, accurate, reliable, and information that is ready to be easily ingested from AI models. So looking at both components, easy consumption for our humans and for our models as a whole. The second one is improving model performances. Well, once we launch some products and some models, that's not the end of the journey. That's actually the start of it. We need to continue a strong monitoring of the performances and making sure that we are, over time, limiting the number of hallucinations that we have. Now, in the use cases that I showed to all of you, there is almost always a human in the loop. So we have a risk mitigation by having an advocate actually reviewing the responses and the solutions of these models, tweaking them as needed, and leveraging them. But it's very different if we're going in the self-service component, which I'm not going to double-click on today. Something that has been key for us to exercise and evolve over time is the prompt engineering component. We are providing those solutions and products to an audience and a user base that is non-technical. So it's very key for us to make sure that the performances of the model may function with a variety of different languages and ways to ask the same questions. I also found very helpful to have some qualitative feedback and eyes on the output of our solutions. We partner very, very closely with our QA, which is quality assurance teams, to evaluate basically if our models are outperforming what our humans and advocates can do. And the last point in the improving model performance is that feedback loop. So highly encourage all of you to think about how can we continuously improve the input that we provide to our models to function. The other big challenge that we have faced is on the latency. As you may be aware, some of those models may have some latency. In some cases, it's just like 2-3 seconds, but for live channels of support, particularly the phone support, that impacts the seller experience. So we have worked to minimize the latency and still achieve a good enough model performance. Lastly, I want to reiterate something that I started at the beginning with. I very much encourage all of you to start with a deep understanding of the business needs, the seller needs, and the advocate's needs. It's less about leveraging AI to fulfill solutions and needs, but it's more about like understanding what those needs are. And in some cases, deterministic flows or process changes can be the answer. So my recommendation as a whole is not to over-engineer and use AI for every single use case, but really understand what is the right investment for AI and the right area for us to work on. And I want to close us up with saying that customer success usually is considered as a cost center. So there is a lack of engineering resources and product resources and design resources. I highly advocate for start looking at customer success as a product, a differentiator that we can leverage in our seller and customer journey to increase their satisfaction, their loyalty, and overall happiness and retention with the company. With that said, I think we have about 3 minutes, so I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. So the question is, how do we do the feedback loop at Square? So in every single of the product that we are launching, there is a user-friendly interface for our advocates to basically saying, thumb up, yes, this resource is good, or thumb down, no, this resource is not good. We usually have also a flag that can say this is actually a security, a safety risk for our sellers, particularly something linked to our payment structure, our product usage. And lastly, there is also like a comment box for them so that we can actually take that input and understand how we can provide that information to our content team that either manually or through some automations are going to revamp the content as a whole. Thank you.
Hey, you mentioned that we shouldn't think of customer support as a cost center, which it usually is, and instead it should be a product. Could you say more about that? Like, in what ways is it actually a product? Like, do you think it's something we could like monetize and like make money from, or actually package it as a product? Or yeah, just curious what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think it depends on the strategy and the maturity of the company, to be honest with you. So there isn't a yes or no type of answer, but my perception and my strong thoughts is that customers value the support that they receive. When there is a problem with their product, particularly when there is something linked potentially to the fintech space, they want security. They want to know there is someone there able to support them 24/7, that hopefully knows them by name if it's a big business that is an upmarket sellers of sort, and that is able to give them the responses quickly so that they can use their product. So in the different companies that I have collaborated, worked with in my management consulting years and here at Square, one of the major reasons of NPS detractors is actually support. Our sellers and our customers need to have someone they can trust to have their issues resolved. So I'd say in that sense, that should be a product. And the way we structure the product is up to the maturity and the business needs and almost the industry that we are. It could be something that could be a revenue generation. Think about like customer support and the link to account managers in the growth and consultation business. Or it could be more like risk mitigation strategy to make sure that we increase the LTV, so the lifetime value of our sellers, and overall retention with our company and products.
I just had one question, like how did you decide whether you want to go for like open source model or closed source model?
That's a great question. So we have tried both. It's a decision that is based on model performance, costs, and ability to fine-tune the models. So those are usually the three criteria that we use when deciding to go open source or closed source. It's not one recipe, so like it really depends on the use cases, what the open sources models could be, and how overall they can achieve the results that we need in that specific use case. And in my high recommendation is just to try. It really depends on the different companies and the level of engineering resources and overall product resources that they have. But what worked for us is also starting with closed models, and after like all going to open models when we realize that actually the use cases are bringing some results to our business and our objectives, and then we can work more on cost optimization and fine-tuning.
Do you also ingest media? If I'm a Square customer, I have a boutique or restaurant or something, the consumer may present an evidence that is like an image, yes, of the whatever consumer electronic that doesn't work, or some apparel or something that something is wrong. Do you also ingest unstructured data like photos and videos?
That's a great question. We don't right now. We are focused on internal and external knowledge. So just to give some examples, articles that we have in support centers and more procedures and policies that our advocates have access to. I think though it's a great idea and potential next step to look more at destructured data and looking at what our sellers are saying in seller community or in social media and overall like maybe the websites that they're using to sponsor and run their business. So we don't right now.